What's good, everybody? TKZ back here with another wrestling video. I'm not going to do a review today. Going to do something a little different. Something that's been floating around my head a little bit for the last few weeks. There was a kind of random news drop here a few weeks back about Lorenzo Fertitta potentially buying TNA. And there's been this ongoing grift for the last few years about TNA is the real number 2, not AEW, which also completely overlooks CMLL and New Japan because they're nowhere close to number 3, even in North America, let alone in the world. But it got me thinking, what would it take for TNA to actually be the number 2? Which I don't think is possible, but maybe they could get the number 3 from CMLL. So this idea has been floating around in my head a little bit. So I'm going to kind of fantasy book a roster, kind of the way Lanza's done the last couple months here with MLW and NWA. I haven't actually read his articles, so I'm not sure what his ideas are. But him proposing that and the Fertitta news really kind of got my brain going, so I wanted to kind of do this thought exercise. So the first thing, I guess you kind of would state the fantasy rules of this is I'm not going to be able to get anything from WWE or AEW, and anyone that Tony Khan wants, Tony Khan's ultimately going to get, because we're not going to have as much money as Tony Khan. So even if guys are in New Japan or CMLL, not necessarily under ironclad contracts, I can't necessarily get them. But the guys kind of on the fringes, I think would be gettable. Like, for example, I only took one guy from New Japan because of the region I'm going to kind of base my company out of, in age and all that stuff. But where I don't think Tony Khan would necessarily get in the way, and that's David Finlay, because I kind of need a guy that can be on top of my card, that can actually work. To the best of my knowledge, he would be the guy that's gettable here. So that's kind of like an example. I couldn't get a Gabe Kidd. He's probably already under AEW contract, but if he's not, Tony Khan would snatch him up. You could maybe get Suji or Oleg Boltin or something if you really wanted, but Tony, keeping his partners happy, would probably put a kibosh on that too. But David Finlay's right at that line where I think you could offer him enough money that New Japan wouldn't match, but Tony Khan also wouldn't match. So that's kind of the philosophy there. And then the other kind of rule is based off the reports that WWE has the right of first refusal, so you kind of have to be friendly with WWE. I'm going to skirt this in some ways and follow it in other ways. But the idea is essentially being that I'm not going to step on their feet becoming number 3, but kind of step more on CMLL's feet. So the first thing I thought about, and if this was feasible, is what kind of draws could I get? So I'm going to use TNA's roster as my base point. And I think TNA really only has one major draw, which is the Hardy Boys. I don't think anyone else on their roster is really a draw. I don't buy the Joe Hendry stuff. And then everyone else is just kind of that Moose level, which I don't think is a real draw. So then I kind of scoured the wrestling landscape, and there's only 3 people, I should say, that I think could be a draw, and how much you could really get a draw out of them, I'm not sure. But that's Alberto Del Rio, Alberto El Patron. I don't think WWE is going to sign him. They've kind of phased him out of AAA. That's a little in the air, but because it's in the air right now at the time of making this, I'm going to say we're going to bring in El Patron. We're going to bring in Tetsuya Naito, and I'm going to Godfather offer to bring in Ronda Rousey. So those are going to be my 4 big draws that I'm hoping can help me sell out buildings and stuff around North America. We're going to do a tour or 2 in Japan as well and try to get some money out of Naito. But we're mostly going to be North America based, and a lot of the free agents available, both just because I don't think either WWE or Tony Khan really has that much of an ear to the ground with it, and with the new AAA rules that they can't take US bookings, I think is going to kind of open up luchadors even more. Is I think all the talent really available for the most part is luchadors, especially the young talent. So that's where our focus is going to be here. So I'm going to try to figure out how to put my little spreadsheet up on this video, but I'm going to read stuff off here too. So our world title picture, so this will be all our main event draws on the men's side, more or less for the main point. Not necessarily all our future draws, but I think all the guys we kind of stick in that division right now. So I'm going to sign El Patron. I'm going to sign David Finlay. You got Mike Santana and Moose there. And then I have Tetsuya Naito kind of rounded out my top 5. And then my kind of challengers probably never actually going to hold the belt. I'm going to bring in Galindo Del Mal. I'm going to bring in one called Manders. I'm going to bring in Luis Monte from Dragon Gate. I'm going to poach a little bit of Dragon Gate talent here. And then probably piss off Dragon Gate because I'm going to also work with Great a little bit. We'll get to that in a minute. But bringing in Monte, going to sign Luke Jacobs. Joe Hendry's still here. He's not going to really ever hold the title in my version of TNA here that's trying to do more of a global expansion. And he'll probably phase out of the world title picture. I got him like at the number 10 spot right now. But he'll probably move into the lower divisions as we go. I'm going to bring in Calvin Tankman as kind of my hoss here. He's probably a little low, but I think he's kind of the Rost, and you got to build him up the more. Kazarian, for nostalgia purposes, I don't know that he's ever going to challenge for the title, but this is the most logical place to stick him. So when you see the spreadsheet, I kind of try to stick the even amount of people in every category. And then because we're going to run Mexico a lot, we're going to bring in some Mexican and luchador legends. So we're going to bring in LA Park. He's the biggest guy we got, so he's going to stick in the heavyweight division here. Probably only going to challenge him like Mexican TV tapings. I can't imagine he'd ever headline a pay-per-view or anything. But this made the most logical sense here. International division, Steve Macklin's the current champion. We're going to sign Michael Oku. I think he's probably one of the highest potential guys on the indies. So we're going to try to build him up in the international division. And obviously this is wrestling, so all these guys can fluctuate. It's not like they're stuck in this division forever. It's more so to keep the spreadsheet clean. But Oku's going to be one of the main focuses here, along with David Finley and probably Galindo Del Mal. Mance Warner is there. I like Mance. I think he's a good mid-card fit. We're going to bring in Trevor Lee back. So I'm going to bring in Oniel Bendito. I know him from Dragon Gate. He's also in the Mexican Indies. He's 23. He's a big dude. I think he's got a lot of potential, a lot of time to grow him. Matt Cardona's still here. I don't know how much use we'll have for Cardona. He's a recognizable wrestler. I don't think he's necessarily a name. You got Jake something, good hoss in the undercard, midcard here. Gonna bring in Sam Adonis because we'll be working Mexico so much. Gonna bring in Gringo Loco. Like I hinted at, we're gonna bring in some of the great guys, and I'm a Dragon Gate mark, so I'm gonna sign SEMA. I don't know how much in the tank he's got left here, but at some point we have to work Japan. We can't just have Naito and Bushi on the roster. Great's obviously not drawing very well, but the hope is if you got Naito kind of headlining the card, you got SEMA, and then you can kind of partner with a company like that. You can draw some pretty decent houses when you tour once or twice a year. Eric Young's still here. I probably should have put Eric Young on the cut list, but because he's so synonymous with TNA, ultimately left him here. And then Super Crazy and Dr. Wagner Jr. rounded it out. I don't know how much TV time those guys will get, but you want to have some names. You want to run some bigger buildings. So at first you kind of want to sneak all these maybe sell ticket guys on the card as we focus on the younger guys. X Division, Leon Slater's our headliner. Leon Slater's kind of our big diamond in the rough here. He'll be a big focus of the company. Mustafa Ali is in this division. I'm going to sign KJ Orso. I think he's shown enough in GCW that it's worth giving him a shot. I'm going to sign Ange Block out of Europe. Arez we're going to bring in, and that kind of whole crew, Latico and Toxin, that got stuck in the tag division. Flamita, going to bring in here. I learned of his issues recently in Mexico, so I don't know how excited he'd actually be to leave Japan to come back to Mexico. Not sure how much Flamita is going to really want to work in Mexico, but we're only going to be in Mexico about half the time, and the States the other half, with Japan sprinkling in there. So offer him some money he can't refuse. Bushi's going to come over as part of Naito's package. But I think that makes sense. If you're going to sign a guy like Naito, you want to have a couple Japanese guys on there. You don't want to rely on just him being able to speak Spanish the whole time. Myron Reed, Cedric Alexander, KC Navarro, all part of the TNA roster. I like them here. I think they're decent bodies. And then some of the other names available, Metalik, Samurai Del Sol, both from the WWE Cruiserweight division back in the day. Nubu-san is part of the Tokyo Bad Boys. More so interested in SB Kento and Uma in the tag division, but he's the third, so we're going to bring him in. And then another legendary name, Juventud Guerrera, bring in here for whatever he's got left in the tank. I don't think he's got too much there, but maybe some of these initial shows in Mexico help us sell some tickets. Tag division, your headliners are the Hardys. That's one of our main draws. Get as much out of them left as we can. Dragon, Bane, and Alpha Wolf are going to be one of our big focuses. I think those guys rock. They're both young. They can speak English and Spanish. Been working in Japan, so I think they are going to have a little bit of name recognition in everywhere we're going to go. We're going to bring in the Panther brothers of Arrow Panther and Fight Panther Jr. They had an awesome match at WrestleMania weekend this year. They're young. I think we can build them up. You got the Nemeth brothers, a little bit of name value, a little bit of work rate. Probably on the higher end of salary-wise, but I think as a stepping stone to kind of build some of these younger teams up will be nice. You have the Rascals still of Trey Miguel and Zachary Wentz. They're fine. Sinner and Saint, Judas Icarus, and Travis Williams I see a lot of in the Pacific Northwest. I think those guys are talented and young. They're both pretty small. I don't know how much you can really do with them, but as a tag team and then X Division fodder too, I think they serve a pretty good role. Going to bring in the Crush Boys, the Titus Alexander and Starboy Charlie. Those are two of the youngest and most talented guys on the American indie scene. I think they're worth giving a shot. AJ Francis and Rich Swann as a tag team, I think has some legs. I got them kind of as middle of the pack. I don't think they'll ever really hold the tag titles. I think Bane and Wolf, the Panther brothers, the Rascals, Sinner and Saint, and the Crush Boys, it's kind of going to be the focus with the Nemeth and the Hardys kind of as our names. I think those 7 are going to be like our top 7, trading the belts around. Everyone after that, I don't know that are going to hold the belts. Although SB Kento and Takuma are both young, so we're going to build them up. They're both in their early to mid-20s. Japan, T-Hawk and Lindemann are going to come over with SEMA. I don't know how much they're really going to flourish here. They're both not old, but they're not young either. They didn't do a whole of a hell of a lot in AEW. I don't know how much more they're going to do here. But they're bodies to fill out the roster. They're talented guys. I don't mind that. Maybe if we do ever expand more to Japan, or if E is still a thing and there's a Chinese market, maybe they help us there. That's kind of the main reason we're bringing them in. Don't know how much that's really going to matter. Brian Myers and Eddie Edwards, we still got sitting around here on this roster. He's a staple at TNA. Still pretty decent. I got these guys pretty far down the card. I don't know how long they would actually stick around. I got Latigo and Toxin on here to go with Erez and Gringo Loco and that whole crew. They're older than I thought, so they're pretty much just fodder here at the bottom of the card. I don't know how much value they have either, but we're at least going to bring them in. The Lucha Solos, Ultimo, Matilda, and Archangel Divino, we're going to bring in. We're going to bring in 2 Exoticas and Sunny Kiss and Estrella Divina. We're going to put them in a tag team. Neither of the major Lucha Libre companies are really using Exoticos anymore. CMLL's had them phased out for a long time. AAA most likely going to phase them out here with WWE's ownership. So we're going to try to take advantage of that lack in the market here with these 2. Probably a better Exotico than Sunny Kiss, but Sunny Kiss has some name recognition in the States, and it's not a field I'm super familiar with, so I'm sure I'm missing some other better indie names that are out there. And then you still got Jason Hotch and John Schuyler. I don't remember what their name is. I keep thinking the Workhorsemen, but that's the ROH team. The Good Hands, I think they're called. They're kind of hanging on here. I think they're both fairly young. I don't know enough about them to say that they're kind of a waste of a roster spot or not. So we'll keep them there. Probably better than some of these tag teams I got ranked above them, but I'm just unfamiliar with them. The women's division, Masha Samlovich is going to be our ace, but we're going to build some names up around here. We're going to bring in Soraya for whatever name value she has left. We're going to bring in Hanan and Rio. Those are probably the 2 best women on the indies. You still have Tessa Blanchard. You still have Steph DeLander, Killer Kelly, Tasha Steelz. Tasha Steelz kind of sneaky old, so she maybe should be lower in the rankings here. I like Vert Vixen. We're going to bring her in. Johnny Robbie seems to work everywhere. I think she's probably talented, even though I'm not too familiar with her. A lot of the women on the independents I don't have a huge familiarity with, so some of this is just picking names I recognize, some of it is just kind of picking the first name I thought of. So there might be more talented women out there. I especially don't know a lot of the independent lucha women's wrestlers, so we're lacking in that department. Ideally, we should probably have a few more of those instead of some of these like end of the bench American indie women. I got Alejandra Quintanilla on here. I jumped around. I got Li Ying Li is still on this roster. I'm a big fan of Amira here in the Pacific Northwest. We're going to bring her in and give her a shot, even though she's so little. I already said Alejandra Quintanilla. Myla Grace is part of this roster. Going to keep her around. And then in the women's tag team division, I put Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler as a tag team. as one of our big draws, especially to ease Ronda in here. She's probably going to work part-time, so Shayna as her heater and as a tag team, I think gives a lot of prevalence to those tag belts. You got Danny Luna and Jody Threat as a tag team. I think they're named Spitfire. I stuck Zia Brookside and Harley Hudson together just because they're both British, and mostly just to uniform some of this thing. I got 28 women altogether here, so you're just kind of shifting some tag teams to clean the roster page up here, just so it looks a little uniform, and no one column is too long here. So I stuck them together just because they're British. I don't know if they're appearing on TV or not. Heather Reckless and Maggie are part of Dana Brooke's group. Cutting Dana Brooke is one of my cuts, but we'll keep them as a tag team. They're both young. They both seem to have a lot of upside. Rosemary is a name that's known. I don't know how much left she has in the tank. We're going to bring in Kylan King. I hope I wrote that name right. I don't think they were ever actually a team in TNA, but they've been in a lot of TNA teams, and they're in that kind of same bubble. So that's why I stuck them together. Mara Sade is part of that roster right now. She's one of the NXT cast off. Seems young. She got picked up right away. She seems like she actually still wants to wrestle. I paired her with Tiara James and then Nikki Blackheart and Maya World. I rounded out the roster with. I stuck them as a tag team too. Just kind of randomly sticking bodies together, really. So that is our roster. So out of that brought us over 100 with the full TNA roster. So I did some cuts. I cut Elijah. I cut Fandango. I cut Dana Brooke. Probably didn't cut Alicia Edwards just because Eddie Edwards is still there, but we're going to phase her out of the full-time roster. And she'll do whatever, just be a manager or what have you. Indy Hartwell we're getting rid of, and the Inspiration, the Iconics we're getting rid of. So I believe that brings us down to 98, so right under 100. Probably still a little big, but a lot of those like Lucha legends like LA Park, Juventud Guerrera, probably in around for the long run. Some of these names that are towards the bottom of the tiers here, like Samurai Del Sol and Metalik, maybe we don't bring in, because I don't know how much name value they really have, and I don't know how good their recent work is anymore. But trying to incorporate a lot of the younger talent here to build up this roster, grow it into something a little better, and put some work rate veterans around them so they can grow. So I have a little bottom section here just to kind of talk about my draws and hierarchy ultimately. So on the men's side, I guess that this is overall because I got Ronda here too. Like I said at the beginning of the video about El Patron, Naito, Jeff Hardy, and Ronda are going to be our kind of big opening draws. On the men's side, David Finlay, Mike Santana, Steve Macklin, Michael Oku, Leon Slater, and Galindo Del Mal are going to be the guys we try to quickly establish. Hopefully within the first year or so we can start selling pay-per-views with them at top and phase out some of these veterans that can't really go anymore. And then our younger guys that we're hoping to grow into the future stars, helping to hit on a few of them. We got them all in tag teams other than Bendito right now. And Bendito is in a trio with Luis Monte and Flamita and Dragon Gate, so he could potentially be in a tag team as well. But we got Oniel, Bendito, Dragon Bane, Alpha Wolf, Girl Panther, Fight Panther Jr., SB Kento, and Takuma. Those guys are all early to mid-20s. So that's kind of our future, what we're trying to build up, strengthen this roster, so we can still draw as the older legends kind of age out, because they're already right at that edge already. Women's roster, we got the established names, Saraya, Ronda Rousey, Shayna Baszler. Kind of keep building up and strengthen Masha Slamovich. Slamovich, obviously the ace. Right below them, the girls that we're going to try to kind of build up to phase out the Sarayas and Rondas is Hayan, Rio, Danny Luna, and Johnny Robbie. And then our really young girls that we're trying to get up to speed as well, Harley Hudson, Maggie Lee, Heather Reckless, and Maya World. So with all the lucha talent, because that's kind of where all the talent is, we're going to kind of focus on the central and western United States. So we're going to run all the big Mexican cities: Mexico City, Tijuana, Torreon. I probably should have looked up the enunciation on all these first. Monterrey, Pueblo, Guadalajara, Nogales, Ciudad Juarez, and Saltillo. I was asking Daniel in the Social Suplex Discord, who lives in Mexico, some of the big cities. I threw in some of the extra ones there too. But we're going to try to hit all the big lucha towns in Mexico, along with like the border towns in the U.S. San Diego, LA, El Paso, San Antonio, Dallas. Chicago seems to always drop pretty well at lucha. Phoenix, those are going to be kind of our main stops. And then as popularity picks up, or if we have some of that old withstanding TNA nostalgia in New York and Toronto, we can obviously go there. So the hope, we're probably going to move to like a 6 pay-per-view schedule, tape every other week. So do like a double taping every week. So we're hitting 26 to 30 places a year. So probably doing, we'll say like 15 in the States, 15 in Mexico, and like 2 in Japan is going to be kind of the tapings, 32 over the course of a year. With this roster, how much dollars you have to actually pump into this and how successful it would be, especially when you're trying to draw in three different regions, I think it would be tricky, but I think you have a pretty good mix of names and talent for the US and for Mexico. And then with Naito being probably the biggest free agent on the market right now, I think that's a good opportunity to try to get a foothold in Japan, especially as the men's side in Japan seems pretty weak right now. It seems like a good chance to try to take advantage of that. I don't know that any of the major companies are going to work with them. Obviously, New Japan has partnered with ACMLL, so that's a no-go. Noah's loosely with WWE, and then All Japan and Dragon Gate are together because of Gaora. Wrestle Universe, kind of the same thing with DDT and Noah. So that's why I stuck with Great, which definitely is going to make Dragon Gate not want to work with us. But I think because there's a connection with Lucha Libre and Puro in some sense, Great's kind of the second best option to Dragon Gate. They don't have the star power. We basically took all their stars. But with Naito and Bushi, you're hoping that's enough. Not that Bushi's a draw, but you're hoping that Naito's enough with some of these other names, Ronda, Jeff Hardy, David Finlay, that you can draw a pretty decent house there semi-annually. I think that covers all of it. I don't have a whole lot else to say, so I'd just be spiraling. All right. Thanks, guys. Let me know what you think. Bye-bye.